Our Across the Aisle segment tonight. After the president spoke at the United Nations yesterday, Senator Feinstein declared that President Trump's threat to totally destroy North Korea if the North Koreans don't stop their nuclear activity was bombastic, a severe disappointment, and only serves, she said, to isolate the United States. Which is funny because President Obama once told the North Koreans that we could destroy you, and none of the liberals seem to think that was inappropriate or dangerous. Listen to President Obama.
We could obviously destroy North Korea.
And this is what President Trump said yesterday that had liberals in a huff. Watch.
We'll have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
With me now, former Georgia State Representative and Democratic strategist, LaDon Jones. LaDon, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
All right, LaDon, I thought this speech by President Trump yesterday was measured and presidential. I thought it was one of his best speeches, actually. He seemed to stick to the script pretty well. Liberals seem to be very upset about this speech, and I have been struggling, in a sense, to figure out why. Because most of the criticisms that Democrats have levied against the president during his campaign and since his inauguration, none of that stuff existed yesterday. So I would like to go through this speech point by point and get your take on it. The first thing is what President Trump said about radical Islam. He said we need to eradicate extremism. We need to get rid of ISIS. We need to cut off their funding and their territory so that they can no longer wage their terror attacks. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I mean, there's no doubt that ISIL and ISIS are part of the biggest problems that we have nationwide with terrorism. And I think that we have to be smart in how we address them. You have to be aggressive as it relates to them. Unfortunately, the part that liberals have an issue with is that it seems that our president confuses people who may be a part of ISIS from anyone who may be of the Muslim faith. And so as long as he can keep those two things straight, I think it's an okay statement.
Right. I didn't hear any of that yesterday in the speech. I just heard him say what, to be honest, both President Bush, President Obama, and President Trump have all said, that we need to eliminate ISIS. The next thing is he talked about spending on our military. He said our military is best used when it's a deterrent, when we're strong enough that our enemies, larger enemies, fear us and don't attack us. That seems to be smart to me, especially if you're talking about keeping the peace. It's better to have a strong military to avoid conflicts than to constantly be getting involved all over the world. Agree or disagree?
Agree, except for I would have liked to hear President Trump go into a little bit more about how it's important that we have a strong military and how it helps our country to protect us. However, at the same time, wanting to use non-violent, non-lethal measures in order to protect our country. He could have spoken a whole lot more about how can we use discussion and debate and other things to prevent anything that may be a threat to the United States. But otherwise, I agree.
Well, I think a lot of military members would have taken umbrage with that if they were told to discuss and debate instead of being told that you are here with your weapons, even if it's necessary to kill the enemy to protect the United States. All right, next thing. This is Iran. He said he was very blunt about Iran, which I appreciated. He said Iran funds terrorism. When they use their dollars, when they use money from their economy to fund terrorism, the people that they actually hurt most aren't Israel, aren't the United States. The people that they hurt the most are their own people, the Iranian people. Agree or disagree, LaDon?
So that's a little bit more of a difficult topic. So it's more detailed than that. So in a general sense, yes, you hurt your own people if you continue to allow them to have weapons. However, the issues in that part of the world in the Middle East are far more difficult than just whether or not someone should have weapons.
Right. I think he was talking about Hezbollah, the terror group there. That wages jihad around the world and how the Iranian government essentially sponsors them, and perhaps even with our money that President Obama gave to them in those infamous pallets of cash that he turned over. That's what he was talking about. I appreciated it. I think we should be strong about making sure that our money is not funding terror attacks because no one wants their money to fund the death of someone else. All right, let's move on to North Korea. This was heavy foreign policy, obviously, because it was at the United Nations. I did think it was funny that President Trump called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. You know that tweaks Kim Jong-un, and he's in a position that he needs to be degraded in a sense because he's just looking for that credibility. We need to make sure not to give that to him. Agree or disagree?
Absolutely disagree. Now, we saw this as typical campaign or candidate Trump, where he had a nickname that was degrading to everyone. You know, people call our president crazy. I won't go that far. I think he's a little bit different. Kim Jong-un, I am very concerned about. We have to be really concerned that anything that is said about him may really set him off. And I don't think this is not a presidential debate stage. Calling him names, and it's not fifth grade either. Calling him names is not going to get us some diplomacy. It's not going to stop him from what he's doing. It's only going to make it worse. And that's just not presidential at all.
Well, I think we're past the point of diplomacy. We've tried that the past three, I believe, administrations, and it hasn't seemed to work. We gave that a try. I appreciated the leadership from President Trump when he said, listen, if North Korea doesn't stop their nuclear activity, we will destroy North Korea. This was something, especially online, liberals seem to be so upset about that kind of rhetoric. They said that it was too extreme. They said we needed to be more diplomatic here, but President Obama actually said just about the same thing. We played that clip earlier in the segment, and I don't remember liberals having a problem with President Obama saying the same thing.
Well, the problem is that when you listen to the full context of what President Obama says, he again talks about using diplomacy, using things that would be more calm. So yes, let us tell you that we can blow you off the face of the earth. However, there are other options. President Trump did not say that. And we can see, you say it didn't work with the previous presidents, but under the previous presidents, we have not had this much action coming out of that country. And so that makes a huge difference. He's provoking him. At the end of the day, this is a madman.
We didn't have as much activity coming because they were allowed to develop the weapons that they're testing, the missiles that they're testing. That wasn't stopped under President Clinton, President Bush, or President Obama. I mean, it wasn't even a partisan thing or a party thing. It wasn't stopped. They tried diplomacy, and look at where we've come. There's almost a missile test on a weekly basis. Our American citizens are stationed over there on the Korean Peninsula. They're in danger, let alone the Korean people, the South Korean people, the Japanese people, the Chinese people. I mean, there are a lot of people whose lives are at risk. I appreciated that President Trump said, you stop it or we're going to stop it for you. I think that was quite strong leadership. But the overall point that I wanted to make in this segment was that I can list several things that I agree with from President Obama's administration. I don't agree with him much on policy, but there are a few things that I can get on board with. But it seems to me that with the Trump administration, liberals, even if we go through things list by list, item by item, like you and I did, they can't say that unless they're prompted. They can't say, listen, I don't agree that he called him Rocket Man, but overall I agree with him on ISIS, I agree with him on Iran, I agree with him on the strength of the military. They ignore that stuff just in favor of criticizing him for calling someone a name.
Well, see, here's the problem, though. President Trump has lost the confidence of so many of the American people, and it's due to his own Twitter fingers. It's due to his own decisions, his statements that he made both as a candidate and then as the president. And so unlike President Obama, unlike Clinton, unlike even the Bushes that came before him, he has nothing that he has done that has been unifying to this country. So if you're upset that liberals won't even give him a space because we don't trust his rhetoric, because we know that he instigates things more than solves them, he has done nothing other than talk about North Korea. Talk. And talk is not enough. And so we don't trust his words and we don't trust his phone to put out something that won't hurt American citizens. We're afraid too.
What bothers me, I guess,
to grow up a little bit and be a bigger president.
Right. What bothers me, I guess, is that talk was enough for liberals under President Obama. But it also troubles me that to liberals, it seems that because of tweets on Twitter, it seems to liberals President Trump is irredeemable, regardless of whether he actually compromises, he actually learns from his mistakes, he actually comes to the table and tries to be bipartisan. He's irredeemable. That's a dangerous sort of attitude to have, I think. Well, Don, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for talking about it.